And when we're serving all of Utah County as well as Juab County, it's just not enough.
Domestic violence cases are on the rise in Utah County, and some centers need help meeting the demand.
We're tracking thunderstorms where we could see that activity for the rest of tonight and where we could see some more storms tomorrow.
Bronny James, the son of NBA star LeBron James, in the hospital tonight after suffering cardiac arrest.
Felt a lot of compassion for what that must have felt like.
Tonight, hear from a Utah father whose son survived the same thing. It's a key piece of private property surrounded by pristine Utah land. Why the purchase of a few hundred acres is being celebrated as a huge victory in conservation. And why the state of Utah wants to hold TikTok in contempt of court.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. I'm Kelly Chapman. Bob has the night off. More and more victims of domestic violence are reaching out for help, but services right now are struggling to meet the high volume of people in need. A Utah County organization tells Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser they simply need more shelters.
The number of reported domestic violence victims is on the rise, and help centers like the Refuge in Orem are trying to keep up with the demand.
We've seen a report from the Department of Public Safety that the number of victims of domestic violence just within Utah County has more than doubled since 2019 to 2022.
Lindsay Hackford is included in that statistic. She's a survivor who went to the Refuge for help just a few years ago. The nonprofit serves victims of sexual assault and domestic violence through 24/7 hotlines, therapy services, and housing.
Us having that stable house that was ours, we weren't a guest to someone, it was our place to stay, was vital in me staying gone and apart from him, and it gave me that confidence that I could do it myself.
The center only has 25 to 30 beds for people seeking shelter, but that number hasn't changed since the 90s. And that was when domestic violence cases weren't as reported and Utah County's population was much lower.
Unfortunately, in 2022, we had to turn away 480 requests for shelter just because our space was full.
Executive Director Ashley Taylor says it's time to move to a new location that, with the right funding, will help housing availability.
And when we're serving all of Utah County as well as Juab County, it's just not enough.
Seeking help changed Hackford's life, so much so that she's now on the board and hoping to help other victims find a safe way out.
When you surround yourself with people that help you feel safe, that makes you feel safe.
In Utah County, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, free support is available 24/7. Call 1-800-897-LINK. That's 1-800-897-5465. You can also find resources from the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition on their website, udvc.org. Right now, the Monument Fire in Uinta County is 80% contained. According to the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands, the area where the fire is burning saw light rain along with clouds and higher humidity today. State officials say crews have made good progress in the firefight and will work tomorrow to improve containment lines and put out hot spots. Those passerby rain showers certainly helped that fire in that area. Allison, I know we had a lot of lightning last night. Is there a threat tonight as well?
We're tracking a few thunderstorms, but I'll tell you what, Kelly, Mother Nature should be charging admission for tonight's sunset. We are getting the most magical pictures coming in right now. This is just a live view from the Natural History Museum. 92 in Salt Lake, 94 Ogden, 81, down into Provo, where we do have some thunderstorms that just moved through. We've got what I'm calling a magical sunset because we're seeing mammatus clouds here along the Wasatch Front from Lehigh up to Murray. It's these pouch-like clouds that actually form due to sinking air on the underside of a cumulonimbus cloud, and it is making for, I'll tell you what, our Weather Authority Facebook group, some of the most stunning pictures that I've seen in a really long time. So we've got a gorgeous sunset right now. We've got rain coming down Spanish Fork Canyon from about Soldier Summit all the way up through Spanish Fork into about the Orem area up towards Heber and Daniel, approaching Strawberry right now. With these storms today, we've seen a little bit of lightning, some wind gusts about 40 to 55 miles per hour. We didn't end up with any flash flood warnings today, which is a good thing. But we're also tracking some thunderstorms down towards Beaver until 9:15. Wind gusts 50 to 55 miles per hour. So coming up in just a bit, we'll talk about what to expect through the rest of tonight for your morning drive and also for our thunderstorm threat for tomorrow.
Pretty with that sunset out there. Allison, thanks. The city of Draper says Edge Homes has cleaned up, also stabilized the area where 2 homes slid off a cliff in April. You remember, the city is now reviewing the developer's plans for stabilizing the adjacent area. The land below the cliff also remains damaged. Edge Homes, Draper, and Salt Lake County all working together on remediation, including the reopening of Ann's and Clark's trails. Employees of Chinatown Supermarket are finally getting the full wages they earned. A Labor Department investigation found the supermarket in South Salt Lake did not pay employees time and a half for working more than 40 hours in a week, and then tried to prevent investigators from interviewing employees. In April, a judge ordered the company to pay more than $500,000 in back wages and damages, which they did last month. The Moab City Council now considering a landscaping ordinance designed to conserve water. The law would reduce the footprint of water hogging grasses and also implement use of gray water. Landscaping restrictions would apply to new developments. The city wants to set a goal of reducing water use 20% by the year 2030. A 320-acre piece of private property in Bears Ears National Monument will now be protected forever. A nonprofit recently purchased the land that's surrounded by the landforms. Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Breed joins us live in studio right now to tell us what this means for both visitors and Utah tribes. Beautiful land there, Jenna.
That's right. Over the last 16 months, the Wildlands Conservancy has been raising money to acquire this area you see outlined in green. It's called Cottonwood Wash. It's one of the most important drainages in Bears Ears and is a critical wildlife corridor. The Wildlands Conservancy was concerned the private property could have been sold and developed, maybe resulting in luxury homes being built there. Dave Herrero, Regional Director of the Four Corners region, says the land will now be accessible for Native tribes to have gatherings in, as well as to visitors, easing the burden off the Bureau of Land Management.
Within the canyon, there are structures that are hundreds of years old. There's rock art that's hundreds of years old. There are hanging gardens that have endemic plant species that are native to the Four Corners region, and it's a water-blessed canyon.
Herrero says the Conservancy is partnering with the local tribes in a cultural conservation easement, the first of its kind in Utah and one of the first of these partnerships in the nation. It brings together a private nonprofit and tribal nations, each interested in protecting the land. The Conservancy will now focus on securing the property, providing pedestrian access, and exploring restoration projects. Reporting live in studio, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A new lawsuit in the case of a stabbing victim who died as Salt Lake police officers refused to give aid. What the family is arguing, despite the department clearing them of wrongdoing.
You've got to really keep a close eye on kids.
Plus, practices are underway for fall high school sports, how teams are dealing with the heat.
But Tony Finau has 4 PGA Tour victories in the last 12 months, and it all started 1 year ago in Minnesota. He'll talk about defending his title at the 3M Open.
A lawsuit has been filed against Salt Lake City and 2 police officers over a man's death. Fox 13 News first reported last year on the death of Ryan Outlaw. His family is now suing police, accusing them of violating Outlaw's rights by failing to render aid when officers responded to a domestic dispute where he'd been stabbed. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbets has tonight's update.
Well, according to this lawsuit, attorneys believe those 2 officers, Ian Anderson and Jada Brown, would have followed their training and given first aid if it was an officer who was stabbed in an elevator. But on November 13th, 2020, they chose not to help Ryan Outlaw. Attorneys are calling it a deliberate indifference to his medical needs. Last year, we showed you how Chief Brown and Mayor Mendenhall praised those officers while at the same time putting them under an internal affairs investigation. because of our reporting. Then the department cleared them both of all wrongdoing. The family says if Salt Lake City refuses to hold these officers accountable, if Salt Lake City will not give them justice, maybe the courts will.
Why are you letting him just lay like...
We're not paramedics. We have medical on the way.
I feel like I should have grabbed my chest seal.
What?
I feel like I should have grabbed my chest seal, but there was just so much going on at that moment.
That last exchange is another point brought up by Outlaw's attorneys. Officer Jada Brown admitting there that she should have done something different. Ryan Outlaw has 4 children, but the lawsuit does not say how much money the family is asking for. Reporting in studio tonight, Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
When we asked Salt Lake City for a response to this complaint, a representative for the mayor's office told us they have no comment on this matter at this time. More Utahns took their boats out on the water over the Pioneer Day weekend compared to last year. And that made for a very busy weekend for workers looking for quagga mussels. The Division of Wildlife Resources says the techs inspected 14,885 boats around the state, with 355 boats needing to be decontaminated. Last Pioneer Day weekend, those numbers were a little more than 12,000 inspections and 252 decontaminations. DWR officials also issued 25 citations and warnings. Quagga mussels are destructive to water lines, boats, and fish. Right now, we all know it, we all feel it. We are in the middle of summer, but it's already time for high school football players to get ready for the new season. That means, of course, practice outside, even on extremely hot days like this one was. Fox 13 sports reporter Andrea Urban reports from the first practice for the East High School squad.
Football season is right around the corner, and today was day 1 of high school football camp. I'm here at East High. We're at the start of practice today. It was in the high 90s before these players took the field. I caught up with head coach Brandon Matich, and he told me that he makes sure his players stay hydrated. And with falling short in the playoffs last year, they want to get a lot out of this camp.
Well, really, day 1, when you run a football program nowadays, it just never stops, right? Season ends, you have Christmas break, and then you go right into winter workouts. This will be the first time we really have everybody collectively together. My staff has turned over quite a bit this year. I'm excited about our staff. It's kind of rejuvenated me. It makes me kind of look at football from a different perspective. I think there'll be a lot of good new things coming from East High football this year.
What do you think of this heat right now to be practicing?
It's hard. Obviously, we're going to have to play in it here in a couple weeks. It's not enjoyable. You kind of like to go old school football and say, this is what makes you tough and all those things, but it's not reality. You've got to really keep a close eye on kids, and I really tell my coaches, if kids are looking off, they're looking dizzy, they're complaining about being nauseous, or they're going to pass out, or any of those things, we just need to look for signs. We have a hydration system here on the field where we can hose down the field or water can in the field, so to speak, to keep it cooler. So we try to do that as frequently as we can, but it's miserable. It's not good to be out in the heat, and I'm hot and I'm not wearing equipment, right? But at least we're not dealing with humidity like much of the Midwest and the East and the South deal with. But it's tough. We got to really keep a close eye on these kids because their health is the most important thing.
How do you feel in this heat? Just kind of tell me about how that changes the game, or does it not? What's this heat like for you?
Oh, the heat is nothing. Man, when you come on the field with all these boys, man, you don't feel nothing. You just with them.
You're not worried about the heat?
Yeah. I ain't worried about no heat. We ain't worried about no heat.
With the Leopards, Andrea Urban, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Hopefully they had a lot of water and they weren't in the pads yet. But it's not only football, Allison. My son has golf team tryouts this week. And, so many other teams are out there. And, of course, people who work in the elements. It's not been easy.
Oh, my goodness. And just looking at even the Phoenix temperatures, Cal, all this entire month above 110.
I've been hearing
they
about
hit 119 again today.
Oh my gosh.
Their third time this year. I mean, we are dealing with just an unbelievable stretch here out west, and they haven't gotten a break. Now tonight we got a little bit of a break just mentally with a gorgeous sunset. First we had a rainbow that showed up in Suncrest. Thank you to Josh for sharing this picture in our Facebook group, Utah's Weather Authority. And I'm telling you what, if you've got a Facebook account and you can log onto the Utah's Weather Authority Facebook page, The pictures from tonight's sunset are just so beautiful. It'll be a nice little cleanse before you head to bed tonight. Just beautiful pictures in that Facebook group. It's still somewhat hot out there. Utah County's cooled down because some storms just moved through at 81 in Provo, but for Salt Lake and Ogden, still low 90s. St. George currently 90. Chance for some isolated storms early in the evening. That's starting to pass. Mostly sunny and mild for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, partly cloudy. Still the chance for some isolated storms to get going here across the state, but morning drive, sunny mid 70s. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be in the low 90s for the evening commute and mostly cloudy with some storms across the region. So an area of high pressure right over the Four Corners that's pulling up some moisture here into Utah. What we're tracking for you tonight is the storms that just rolled through Utah County are now moving through Spanish Fork, approaching Strawberry, Heber, Daniel. As we go ahead and track the chance for storms overnight, really we're going to lose a lot of the strength. But we're still seeing some wind gusts about 50 to 55 miles per hour down towards Beaver with some gusty outflow winds. Essentially, most of our threat is over for this evening. We have a pretty pleasant night, a great start tomorrow, and then we'll end up again with a chance for some more isolated storms to develop. So we'll continue that high pressure into Wednesday, pull up some of that moisture on the west side of that, and then overnight temperatures as you wake up tomorrow morning, 65 to 75 for a lot of the state. With temperatures tomorrow for the Wasatch Front close to 100 degrees. So we've got a very hot 7-day forecast continuing. And we've got cool mornings. As always, we've got temps about 75 to 85, you know, the first part of the day, coolest part of the day, rising to about 100 degrees by 4 p.m. tomorrow. St. George, you're pretty comfortable, all things considering, at 6 a.m. Still cool, hard to cool the house down when you're 80 degrees for a low, and then close to 110 at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We'll track that chance for storms again Wednesday afternoon here across the state, pretty similar to today. 108 for St. George tomorrow, close to 105 to 110 through this weekend, and for the Wasatch Front, we're around 100 degrees through our entire 7-day forecast. We'll look at your 2-week temperature trend coming up in just a bit.
I was on the verge of just throwing my phone across the street. That's how frustrated I was because I had this temperature-sensitive vaccine in my hand.
Oh, he was mad. Coming up, how UTA is now responding after a man says his medication was ruined because of a bus that didn't come. Plus, the son of LeBron James is out of the ICU tonight, suffering cardiac arrest during basketball practice. What a Utah father this one learned when his teenager had a similar experience. And Utah is going up against TikTok, what the state says the app needs to do. We'll be right back. You are not alone. The heat is impacting everyone, especially those who rely on public transportation and sometimes have to wait outside in the elements for the next bus to arrive. One man tells Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule the combination of a late bus and the heat may have impacted the effectiveness of the typhoid vaccine he was carrying.
Michael Piper has been using public transportation since 2004, but recently he says using it has been a gamble.
Sometimes it shows up early, sometimes it shows up late. The schedule is so people can be like, okay, I can show up at this time 5-10 minutes early. But no, if it's like going by 10 minutes early, what's the point of the schedule? It's like just show up and hope for the best.
Earlier this month, Piper was in a race against time and the heat to get a vaccine back home after picking it up from a local health department.
They informed me that this is a type of vaccine that you have to take by mouth. It's very temperature controlled. You have to keep it refrigerated at all times.
Even though Piper says he arrived at his bus stop to go home on time, he says the bus didn't come, causing him to wait another 30 minutes for the next one, which he says was also late.
When I got home, it was like that. We had a little ice pack inside the package, and that thing was like lukewarm. It would cost $120 just to get a new set of that vaccine. So I used what I could, and for other people, how are they supposed to get around? Like, somebody needs to get a job interview. How are they supposed to get to where they need to go if it's going to be late then next thing they need to transfer to late.
We're sorry whenever we are delayed. We have people who are in our control centers at all the time who are trying to reroute the buses and trying to get them where they're supposed to go.
Carl Arkey, spokesperson for the Utah Transit Authority, says summer is peak season for public transportation users and construction.
That affects our buses and the routes and the timing of our buses. It can be construction, there can be accidents along the route. We also have operator shortages that at times do affect our operations. There are road closures. The best thing that anybody can do is download the Transit app and put that on their phone and use that. They can see where the buses are, how they're doing.
Piper is hoping his vaccine still worked and wants there to be more investment in public transportation in the future to make it more reliable.
If it was more consistent and better, people would use it more.
In Salt Lake City, Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
The son of NBA star LeBron James is in the hospital after collapsing on the court with a cardiac arrest on Monday.
When I think about it, it's difficult.
We hear from a Weber County father whose 13-year-old son went through the same thing earlier this year.
The state of Utah wants a judge to hold TikTok in contempt of court. I'll tell you why.
2 workers injured at Thatcher Chemical Company here in Salt Lake City. Coming up, we look into how it's not the first time something like this has happened here.
Muslims here in Utah are celebrating the first Muslim American Heritage Month all month long, and the Salt Lake City Public Library has a special part to play.
RSL's not lost in their last 11 matches with 8 wins and 3 ties. Coming up, Justin Glad will tell us how the team is rolling right now.
Glad you're with us tonight, everyone. Bronny James, the 18-year-old son of NBA superstar LeBron James, is in the hospital right now after suffering cardiac arrest at basketball practice yesterday. His family says the incoming freshman guard at USC is now out of the ICU and is in stable condition. Details beyond that are limited still tonight. The James family, however, is asking for privacy at this time, and USC denied comment, citing student privacy concerns. Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold spoke with a doctor at Mountain Star Healthcare about this major national news story, as well as with a Weber County father whose 13-year-old son suffered cardiac arrest earlier this year.
We were in the last minute of the game, and he called me from the court.
Wilson McConkey was coaching his 13-year-old son Christian's rec basketball team back in January when he noticed something wasn't right.
I pulled him off the floor and was sitting him down on the bench, and he collapsed.
Christian would go into cardiac arrest. Several people would come to his aid, including, McConkey says, an off-duty Weber County EMT.
He helped assess. He started compressions.
He says paramedics arrived and used an AED before Christian was taken to the hospital. He would spend a week at Primary Children's Hospital.
I did have moments there where I thought, wow, I might have said goodbye to him already.
He says his son would ultimately have open heart surgery to remove a subaortic membrane. McConkey says several people reached out to him on Tuesday after hearing that Bronny James, the son of Los Angeles Lakers star LeBron James, suffered a cardiac arrest while at practice at USC.
Felt a lot of compassion for what that must have felt like.
According to the CDC, more than 350,000 people have an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest in the United States every year. About 60 to 80% of those people die before reaching the hospital.
Cardiac arrest potentially will cause this loss of consciousness, and you need to activate 911 immediately. Cardiac arrest really means that the function of the heart stops. The heart is unable to produce pressure and forward flow to supply blood to the rest of the body.
However, Dr. Philip Ross, the chief medical officer of Mountain Star Health, says cardiac arrest differs from someone who suffered a heart attack.
Heart attack or myocardial infarction is a situation where a portion of the heart muscle is in a process of dying because it doesn't get enough blood and oxygen because a vessel that supplies the region is blocked.
As for McConkey, 6 months after his son had a cardiac arrest, he says Christian is doing great and ready to get back into sports.
He's wanting to play fall lacrosse, and so just trying to get him in and his heart in shape for that.
In Mill Creek, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Cardiac arrest can be reversible in some cases if it's treated within a few minutes. That's key. Per the American Heart Association, there are steps to follow. First, call your local emergency number and start CPR right away. So call 911. Then, if an automated external defibrillator or AED is available, use it as soon as possible. Can't stress enough. Time is key here. If two people are available to help, one should begin CPR immediately while the other calls your local emergency number and then goes and finds that AED. Hopefully you or somebody you love is never in this position, but it's good to be armed with knowledge.
We have been investigating TikTok. Now it's known to the world, so to speak, today because of this motion for order to show cause.
The state of Utah wants a judge to hold TikTok in contempt of court. It's a story Fox 13 News broke this morning on Good Day Utah. Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow has more.
The state of Utah filed a motion to hold TikTok in contempt of court. The company is accused of refusing to comply with the Utah Department of Commerce's subpoenas for information.
Basic questions around their business operations and the number of users that they have in the state of Utah, and they haven't provided that. To me, that seems like a pretty easy thing.
The filing revealed the state is actively investigating TikTok.
And that's why it's been so shocking that they are not even responding to the most basic questions in really adequate ways.
In court exhibits, TikTok tries to make a case it is responding to the state's demands, but also discloses other states are investigating the company as well. They say the subject matters of these investigations overlap, and they are working to respond to them all. TikTok and its parent company ByteDance so far have not responded to our requests for comment on the situation. The Utah Department of Commerce also not saying if it's actively investigating any other social media companies.
Well, I'm not really privy to disclose all those things, but I think it's really sort of, if you think about all the things that we see around us, that we've been all educating ourselves on about what's happened with social media, the harms on our children. These are really big deals, and we know that, and so that was the impetus for the investigations.
In January, Utah's governor and attorney general threatened a lawsuit against social media companies for alleged harms to youth, including their mental health. They compared the litigation to similar ones against opioids and tobacco companies. The legislature this year also passed a series of bills going after social media companies for targeting youth with their products.
We hope they comply right away. You know, this is obviously designed to put pressure on TikTok so that they will comply quickly.
On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
The city of St. George wants a lawsuit over drag show lawsuit dismissed. Southern Utah drag stars sued the city for rejecting their permit for a show. A federal judge forced the city to allow the show to go on. Now, in a new court filing obtained by Fox 13 News, the city is asking a judge to throw out the lawsuit, saying city council members are entitled to governmental immunity. The Utah Court of Appeals has overturned the firing of a Daggett County teacher accused of encouraging his students to burn textbooks and skip class. The teacher was fired from the school district in 2019. The court ruling indicates the teacher claims he told students to burn math textbooks because the district was ordering new ones. He also did not give assignments on days when so many students were absent for extracurricular activities. The court overturned the termination, arguing a hearing officer used incorrect standards in upholding the firing. The issue now gets considered all over again. Utah-based Pluralsight is having another round of layoffs. The company's CEO confirmed the move to our content partners at the Salt Lake Tribune. He told the paper it was part of a strategic alignment of resources, but he did not say how many employees were cut. Last December, you may remember, Pluralsight laid off 400 people. Then an undisclosed number of employees was let go just this past April. The cloud-based learning software company says it is trying to become more profitable and meet the evolving needs of its customers. Well, coming up, we will have an update on an explosion at a Salt Lake chemical building early this morning. What officials are now telling us about the history of the company and what fire crews are saying about the explosion. And it's Utah's newest Heritage Month. We'll show you how our Muslim American neighbors are celebrating. Stick with us. An explosion injured 2 workers at Thatcher Company in Salt Lake City this morning. It's located just off of I-215 and California Avenue. Fortunately, both workers only suffered minor injuries, and there was no chemical release that would put the public in danger. But Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson found the company does have a history of chemical leaks and fines.
A sign posted at Thatcher Company saying it's been 14 days without a recordable injury needs updating after Tuesday morning. Salt Lake City Fire Department Division Chief Dan Walker says they responded to several calls of a large explosion at 5:30 a.m.
It was heard by many people, even several blocks away.
He says they don't know the cause of the explosion, but thankfully, he says neighbors are safe.
There was no release of any toxins or anything that was be a concern to the community.
But that hasn't been the case historically. We reported on a sulfur dioxide leak at Thatcher Company in 2019 that impacted at least 56 workers. Looking back through the past 20 years, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has cited Thatcher several times for violations. We found 2 serious violations in 2004, 2 in 2013, 19 serious violations and 4 willful in 2019 following an accident, and 1 serious in 2022, also in an inspection after an accident. We asked OSHA why in the 2019 case the fines were lowered from nearly $300,000 to $22,500 after a, quote, formal settlement, but they responded saying they did not have anyone available to talk Tuesday. Those incidents listed also don't include the 5 federal penalties by the Environmental Protection Agency since 1992. The most recent, when the agency issued a $300,415 fine in 2019 after an investigation found Thatcher Company didn't properly register pesticide products sold by distributors, among other things. As for the most recent explosion, Walker says it's under investigation.
They're working with the company as well, with OSHA and other agencies to determine the cause so that we could not have this to happen again.
I reached out to Thatcher Company via phone and email, but did not hear back. In Salt Lake City, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
It was another hot day, 97 today in Salt Lake, just a tiny bit above normal. We are tracking some storms this evening and heading into tomorrow. What to expect coming up.
And coming up in sports, local golfer Blake Tomlinson receives some good news regarding next week's Utah Championship. And Tony Finau hoping to repeat what happened last year in Minnesota when he tees it up at the 3M Open. We'll hear from him as he looks to repeat as champion.
For Muslims here in Utah, July is a special month. It's a way to feel seen, recognized, and included. Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi shares the meaning behind the first Muslim American Heritage Month being celebrated here in our state.
It's amazing. Like, you don't think that it would happen.
Here's a display of Muslim stories.
This is from a Saudi Arabia story. This is from India. This is from Afghanistan.
And books by Muslim authors at the Salt Lake City Public Library.
Stories teaches us and shows us the inner working, or everything that we read to that one moment, or how to understand that, or how people from a different place got affected by certain events and how they defined it and it defined them. So
Ruxana Iqbal tells me that this is the first year the community has been able to celebrate Muslim American Heritage Month with various events.
Making people more aware and giving them more opportunities to see us, hear us, be part of us, share our differences at the same time, embrace them.
Last year, Governor Cox signed into law that every July would be recognized as Muslim American Heritage Month.
And we were just in shock. Like, it took us a long time to believe that this would happen. Even
through events like prayer meets, conversations about hijabs, and interfaith dinners that happened through the month, this recognition is a way for Muslims from all over to come together and celebrate their culture. And before the month wraps up, there are a couple more big events lined up, including the first Halal Food Festival.
Halal food is one of the biggest concerns whenever anybody goes any place. And so we're doing that. With that, we're doing a cricket match on the same day.
The goal is to help educate people about Muslims and help people feel together and understood.
I think when we think of Muslim, we just put them in one box, which is not the case. We are the most diverse, and we are from all walks of life.
In Salt Lake City, I am Maithili Gubi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Today, the Environmental Protection Agency visited with state and community leaders, as well as Salt Lake City residents. They were listening to concerns, also sharing information about EPA support and grant opportunities. It was during the meeting the EPA talked about funding opportunities associated with the Biden administration's Investing in America agenda, including air monitoring, zero-emission school buses, and property cleanup projects.
This is a community-based and scientifically informed process that will invite these communities into the conversation with the scientists to say, here's what the reality is on the ground, here's what's impacting our communities.
Salt Lake City and local organizations are already benefiting from many of these programs. Well, the Culver's restaurant in Layton is giving back to the community and giving those who help them a sweet treat. Culver's teamed up with the Utah chapter of the American Red Cross for a blood drive today. And for every person who donated blood, Culver's gave them a pint of custard and a butter burger. Sounds good to me.
This is the first year we are doing a mobile blood drive with the Red Cross. It's something that we had planned last year that we were thinking about, how can we reach out to the community? And I brought that up and the owner was like, let's do it. And this year was a wonderful opportunity to get that started.
Yeah. Potentially saving a life is another big bonus too. This is so important to donate blood if you can. Culver's says this blood drive was indeed successful. They plan on partnering with the Red Cross again next year. Thanks to everyone who donated. American Indian Services is partnering with other Utah-based groups to connect students with life-changing opportunities. It's part of a free STEM program for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students over 3 consecutive summers. Today, students met with 1-800-CONTACTS to get eye exams and eyeglasses, which are difficult to access in their rural and reservation communities.
Well, I think we take really seriously making sure that we can provide good vision care in all the communities that we're in. And it's really important to us. We know that children who can see and have the right vision care that they need sets them up for more success in the classroom.
Besides the free eye clinic, students connected with professionals at 1-800-CONTACTS to learn more about career opportunities. Hi again, Allison.
We are tracking what was a gorgeous sunset and also still some thunderstorms here across the state. This was the view in Cedar Hills tonight. So thank you so much for sharing this picture. This picture just came in from Michael Short. Absolutely stunning mammatus clouds, sinking air, gorgeous when paired with a sunset. And just in general, if you ever get the chance, they're pretty rare cloud to see those mammatus. They're pouch-like on the underside of the cloud. Beautiful pictures coming in tonight on our Facebook group, Utah's Weather Authority. A little bit of rain just moved through Spanish Fort Canyon up towards about Strawberry Reservoir. A little bit of lightning right now, so I hope folks are staying safe. We're still seeing some storm development in southern Tooele County, so we still have the chance for some storms to make it to the Wasatch Front this evening. We'll get to those chances right now. So for Salt Lake and Provo, we're going to see some isolated storms possible through about, let's call it 2 a.m. Then it becomes unlikely. And then tomorrow afternoon, we could again see some areas of isolated storms. So our flash flood potential for tomorrow is possible for Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef, and the San Rafael Swell. Not expected elsewhere heading into our tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Now, chance of precipitation for Ogden for tomorrow is isolated through Thursday. A little drier this weekend. Some more storm chances early next week. For Provo, isolated storms possible also through Thursday into even Friday for Utah County. A bit drier this weekend. Some more storm chances early next week. And for St. George, your chance of precipitation isolated tomorrow and also early next week. So temperatures at 10 o'clock tonight, we are looking at about 85 to 75 degrees. Waking up tomorrow morning, many of us about 60 to 75 degrees for tomorrow. We'll have a mostly clear to partly cloudy start for your Wednesday, and then temperatures rising again tomorrow around 90 to 100 degrees. Still more storm development for our Wednesday. St. George 108 tomorrow, 109 on Thursday. So we're going to keep you about 105 to 110 through the weekend. So we've got a hot 7-day forecast. For the Wasatch Front, we're also going to stay above average the next couple of days by about 5 degrees. Tomorrow 100 degrees, 101 on Thursday, 101 on Friday. We'll keep you close to 100 degrees through the entire 7-day forecast. So we break down our chance of storms here in Salt Lake City. Just some low isolated chances Wednesday through Thursday night, and again early next week. So you may be wondering, okay, well, we're wrapping up what's been a really hot July here across the state. What can we expect as we start August? First week of August likely is above average across the region, so it looks like our warm temperatures are going to be continuing.
After beating Seattle 3-0 in their first League Cup match on Saturday, Real Salt Lake can take advantage and advance to the knockout round with a win or tie against Monterrey from Mexico tomorrow night at America First Field in Sandy. RSL's playing great. They're unbeaten in their last 11 matches in all competitions during June and July with 8 wins and 3 ties. After a slow start, they're third in the Western Conference standings in the semifinals of the U.S. Open Cup and off to a great start in Leagues Cup.
There's a good vibe around the team right now. I feel like we're going into games kind of expecting to win, which is always a good feeling. And then, of course, everyone's going out on the pitch and playing well and working for each other.
Are you kidding me? It's Justin Glad!
I don't think I would have expected to be this hot, to not take a loss in I don't know how many games it's been. But that's hard to do in this league. It's been good, and we just want to keep it going.
Tony Finau will defend his title at the 3M Open this week in Minnesota. Finau has 2 wins on the PGA Tour this season, but he's not played his best lately, missing the last 2 cuts. But this is a tournament that got him going last year, winning 4 times in the last 12 months.
That's the best golf I played this year and haven't been in that form really since. So it's hard to put my finger on it. You know, I'm still working at it, trying to get in the best shape of my life and still trying to do the right things. So the game presents challenges at every turn. No matter what stage of your career you're in, I am at a stage where I have had some nice wins, but haven't had the consistency that I would have liked to see for myself over the year. So this time last year, I was able to change the way that the year was going and started to trend upward right into the playoffs. And I'm looking to do some of the same starting this week.
With the support of Tony Finau, former Utah golfer and Salt Lake City native, Blake Tomlinson has received a sponsor exemption to play the Utah Championship next week at Oak Ridge Country Club. This will be the first start on the Korn Ferry Tour for the 3-time All-State golfer from Skyline High School. 24-year-old is currently playing on the PGA Canada Tour. Salt Lake Bees played this afternoon in Tacoma, got off to a great start. Jack Lopez lifts this one to right field, and it carries out for a 2-run home run. Put the Bees up 3-0 in the first inning. It was tied up at 5 in the 6th inning when Jordan Adams sit it down the line. That would be a ground rule double, scoring Chris Oakey. That turned out to be the winning run. The Bees opened up their 6-game series with a 6-5 win on the road. And tomorrow night, of course, we got the big night for soccer. First RSL, and then the women take
the
over.
big one. All right, get your Team USA gear out, because tomorrow night, watch Team USA take on the Netherlands in the Women's World Cup right here on Fox 13. The women always have such a good team.
They do. This is a rematch of the championship game 4 years ago.
Wow, right off the bat taking
Yeah.
it on Netherlands. All right, pregame starts tomorrow at 5 p.m. The game starts at 7. And for your local news, we will be streaming Fox 13 News at 5 still. You can find us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. So have that going on one screen and have the ladies on Fox 13 playing their heart out tomorrow. We'll be right back. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining Jeff, Allison, and me tonight for Fox 13 News at 9. Stick around. Quickcast is next.